Hello, my little Luxxes. This is another episode of Luxxxy Charms, and I'm your host, cosplayer Charsie Luxxx. And welcome to another episode of Ghost Stories My Father Told Me. Welcome.
Hiya, Georgie.
Like I said, this is another episode of Luxxxy Charms on theme for urban legend scares. Yes, I know that technically that was for the month of May and this is now June. But as I've been saying for quite some time now, my life has been hectic in so many ways. We won't go too into detail with it right now. For now, I will just say hold till the end and I will give you some life updates. And I also want to give the actual theme for the month of June. Although if you saw my tiny little announcement not too long ago, you should know exactly what the theme for June is. But today, for Ghost Stories My Father Told Me, I am going to be sharing an urban legend that he did in fact share with me way back in the day. And this is my #1 favorite urban legend. Obviously, by the title of this, you should know exactly what my favorite urban legend is. So it's not quite a mystery, even though I'm acting like it's a secret. Got a secret? Can you keep it? Now.
'Cause two can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
But for this one, I am sharing the urban legend of the licked hand. To begin the tale of the licked hand, we talk about a little girl by the name of Emily. She is only just a mere 14 years old, a young teenager at heart, but still a very shy, timid child in so many ways. She never liked being on her own and by herself too often, but there was one evening where both of her parents had some plans that they were going to be out for the entire night. And this was officially going to be the very first time that Emily would be at home alone for the entire night. She tried inviting several of her friends over to stay with her, but unfortunately it was a school night, so none of her friends' parents were comfortable with them staying the night over at the house. Now her parents kept trying to reassure her that at 14 years old that she should be just fine on her own at the house, but they greatly apologized to her that they had no choice, that they had to go out of town due to the fact that there was a family emergency and that they had to help out. And since it was a school night, Emily needed to stay home so that she could go to school. And her parents definitely kept reassuring her that she would be just fine because she had her trusty dog Duke there with her. So her parents left for the evening, kissed her on the forehead, and told her if there is an emergency to please give them a phone call. She had all the emergency phone calls that she would possibly need, and her parents also told her that if it was indeed a huge emergency, to call 911. So her parents leave, and Emily at first is just fine. She decides to watch some television. She is sitting on the couch, and she is sitting with her trusty dog Duke, who is curled up at her lap on the couch with her. But as the evening goes on and it gets later and later at night and the darker and darker it gets, Emily starts to feel more and more uncomfortable. And then the evening news comes on the TV. And to Emily's horror, it is a news story about an escaped convict who was a murderer who had escaped from the prison not too far from her home. And this newscast had some breaking news that several people had been found dead near Emily's neighborhood. And they all believed that it was this escaped convict from the prison. So Emily is definitely petrified and scared, and she's out of her wits' end. So she tries to call her parents in a panic, but she has no luck getting a hold of them because they are still in transit to the hospital. So Emily, realizing that she has no opportunity to get a hold of her parents, and it is now way too late at night for her to try and contact any of her friends to see if maybe she can just stay the night with them. So instead, she makes the decision to go to bed and that she would have her trusty dog Duke with her. So she takes Duke upstairs with her, gets ready for bed. Now Emily, comfortably in her bed with her covers all the way up, takes her hand and she leans it down at the edge of the bed where she knows that Duke likes to sleep. And Duke starts licking her hand in reassurance that everything is okay. So Emily starts to settle for the night and falls asleep knowing that her trusty dog is by her side. Within about an hour or so, she wakes up to some very strange noises. Now, mind you, Emily knew that she had locked all the windows and she had locked all the doors, but she could hear this very strange sound, and of course it was scaring her, and so she reached her hand down, looking for Duke, and once again she got that reassurance from her dog that her hand was licked, and now with that comfort that he was there and that he wasn't barking at whatever this noise was, she felt comforted and she went back to sleep. More time goes by, and Emily wakes up to a very strange dripping sound. Just drip, drip, drip. And it seemed to come from the bathroom. So she kept thinking, she goes, I don't think I left the faucet running by chance. It wasn't doing that earlier today. And the more she listened to it, it sounded stranger than just a normal dripping faucet. It just was very eerie, strange, irregular dripping sound. So as she felt scared all over again, she reached her hand down to be reassured by her dog that everything was okay. And just like before, her trusty dog Duke licked her hand, so she felt reassured again that everything was fine. And since she was too scared to get up and look at what the noise was, just decided to fall back asleep. But everything was okay because Duke was still by her side. The following morning, Emily woke up and she couldn't find Duke anywhere in the area, but she knew that since it was the morning, he probably wandered off to go downstairs and probably waiting downstairs patiently for his breakfast. So Emily, in a sleepy stupor, just kind of wanders over to the bathroom, and as soon as she turns on the light, she is horrified by the sight that she sees. There before her, she sees her poor trusty dog Duke, and he is being hung up by his neck, and she can see that he has been cut open and disemboweled. And there, that strange noise that she had heard over the night was the dripping of her poor dog's blood, and it was still slowly drip, drip, dripping on the floor. And there, next to her dog, written in his blood, were the words, "Humans can lick too." Well, my little Luxxes, I really hope you enjoyed that little urban legend. It's not a long one, but most urban legends really aren't long tales. Usually you can find a lot of them as collections in a lot of storybooks. And of course, my dad loved to share this one, and I think it came from the book originally, but there were times where it just became a tradition of just sharing the story and different versions of it as well. In fact, looking up the history of the licked hand, that this story first came into print in 1982, and it shows up in several different movies and different television shows. And in fact, it's kind of correlated with the movie review that I gave before for Urban Legend, except it was for the second one, Urban Legend, The Final Cut. They have a reference to the licked hand in that film. So technically, we can always do another, well, I'm pretty sure that what my plans is that from time to time, I'm going to have a month that is themed around a specific urban legend, because a lot of these films, we get the stories of these urban legends. I mean, we have the hooked hand, or as they like to call Lover's Lane, the Hook, the Hook Man. And we also know that Candyman is kind of loosely based off of a combination between the Hook and Bloody Mary. So obviously we can also have a Bloody Mary theme for a month. But the licked hand, I always found that story so scary when I was a kid. Now, mind you, since it's an older story, the child in question was much younger than 14 years old, but in today's day and age, it is technically illegal to leave your younger children at home alone. A teenager, it's a little more comfortable, but at the same time, there are different versions to the story as well. They also have the story version where it's an elderly lady who is very nearsighted and that she can't tell that the dog that she is petting is not in fact her dog. That the thing in question that is licking her is in fact the person that is a killer. The version I know is the one where the little girl finds the dog and the story ends, but there are different versions where supposedly the little girl goes missing herself or she's killed and the parents come home to find her dead. But yeah, there's different versions to the urban legend, but that's how stories go. As they are passed down from generation to generation, they kind of change, they transform, and especially it makes sense if you're sharing a story for a different time frame, for a different generation, because things and laws and all that kind of change over time. Because obviously, back when I was a kid, you could even babysit while you were a kid, and that was legal, that was fine. And one of the television series that shared a version of this would be Supernatural. And of course, the first few seasons of Supernatural, they took a lot of urban legends and based them into their lore for the television series. And The Licked Hand was the episode. Don't quote me, I didn't write it down because I'm silly. And I don't have my extra notes with me here, so I think it was the episode that was called Family Remains, and it was about the family that lived in the crawl space of this house, and the little girl had a situation where she was reaching out to be reassured by her dog, and she was being licked on her hand, and then was horrified to realize that her dog is standing in the hallway looking at her, and she realizes that it was a person that was licking her hand. So there are different versions of this one that I think is very interesting, and let me know some movies that you know of that share this tale or that use a version of this in their story lore. And I wanted to kind of give an announcement about the fact that the month of June, I am bringing back Dead Girl Summer, and I am super excited to talk about this one because the first film that I'm going to be introducing for my movie review is a very underrated, very not known horror film called Paranormal Island. And I first found this film because of the fact that Lance Henriksen and Brianna Evigan, which I hope that's how she pronounces her last name, I'm sorry if it's incorrect, but I first found the film because they were in it. So that's what piqued my interest and was watching it. And while watching it, it's based in Illinois on Grass Lake at a place called Blarney Island.
Isolated in the middle of Grass Lake, Illinois, is a man-made island bar known as Blarney Island.
Come to find out, it's a real place. And I found out that Blarney Island is only 2 hours away from where I live. On top of doing the movie review on Paranormal Island, my coffee and cosplay episode is going to be me and my husband on vacation, and we go and we see Blarney Island. So I will be talking about that for that episode. So I am extremely excited to talk about that and the history and lore that is around that area, because everywhere has their own version of an urban legend. So once again, thank you so much for joining me here on Luxxxy Charms for another episode of Ghost Stories My Father Told Me. Oh yeah, I did say that I was also going to give kind of a little bit of a life update. I wanted to move it to the end of the episode due to the fact that I'm trying to teach myself that if it's not coffee and cosplay, that to just begin my story, maybe give like a little bit of an update for some things, but to just jump into my story, then go into my facts or whatever else I want to talk about. But things have been kind of in a breakdown, turmoil type of situation for me, and I don't want to get too deep into it, and this is also why I didn't want to talk about this at the beginning of my episode, because I've been a huge emotional wreck for the past, who even knows how long. But long story short, I had a wonderful 4-day weekend for Memorial Day weekend out at out at Petite Lake or Fox Lake or Grass Lake. It's all in that area over there, and not too far from Chicago as well. It was amazing. It was relaxing, and just spent the time hanging out with my husband and our friend Sean. They were fishing. I was just relaxing and enjoying the environment around me, which is also why I wasn't on my Twitter or my Instagram that much over the weekend. Like, I took full advantage of just letting myself reset. And I went back to work on Wednesday, and only within like minutes of being back in work, it felt like chaos within 2 hours of being there, and just being bombarded with so much shit, having to help out with things that aren't even a part of my job. I felt exhausted, and it finally hit me that after only being there for 2 hours, after a very wonderful, refreshing vacation, and I was breaking down and sobbing in the bathroom because I just felt so awful. And it's like, something is wrong here, and I'm clearly not getting better while I am staying there. I kept making excuses. The people pleaser in me kept thinking, well, if I leave, I'm going to screw over my coworkers, the ones that I love and adore and that I like working with. There comes a point after so much amounts of time and the broken promises, all the excuses, and my boss is continuing to say, things will get better, things will get better. It's been a year and a half, and things have gotten worse. And it's time for me to abandon ship. So on Monday, I am giving my notice that I'm quitting my job. So I'll have to give you an update to let you know how that goes, because I really don't know how my boss is going to react. Definitely wish me luck, although by the time you see this, I'm going to assume that I won't be able to post this till Monday evening or Tuesday evening, just depending on, like I said, with my schedule and everything. But the other announcement that I wanted to make was the fact that when I quit my job, I think I'm going to take a month off, and that I'm just going to focus on being able to have the opportunity to just work on my videos and just work on my cosplay content and just enjoying my time and resetting my mind. Long story short, I'm quitting. I'm gonna take some time for myself and focus on my content here for Charsie Luxxx, Luxxxy Charms, and just see what I can do in that point in time. I'm also contemplating on selling some photos that are of my cosplay photography, some of the favorite costumes that I've done throughout the time, and I'm also contemplating on finally taking the leap and starting a Patreon. I talked about before that I just was so disappointed when I had an OnlyFans, and that OnlyFans is just overrun by SW. Hopefully you know what that means, and that's not the content I wanted to focus on. And I was so happy to come to YouTube and to be able to focus on the actual things that I want my cosplay to be a part of. So I've just had so much opportunities and things that I'm grateful for, but I've been thinking about starting a Patreon since I left OnlyFans, but because that left such a bad taste in my mouth, I didn't want to just take the leap and do it right away. So I held off, but it's what I wanted to do for so long, is that my intentions is to create stories and to become a writer, and that all these stories that I've been talking about, especially ghost stories my father told me, and to create books that are a collection of these stories. So a lot of things going on in my life right now, and I love and appreciate every single one of you, and thank you so much for your support. And also, if you're brand new to my channel, welcome to my channel, and please like and subscribe. Come join the Luxxxy family. And to everyone who keeps coming back, thank you. I appreciate you, and so much celebration to come in my life as I go on this new journey, and we'll see where life takes me. But that went on a lot longer than I anticipated, so I'm glad I didn't put that at the beginning, so. But thank you once again so much. And if you have an interest in following me on my other social medias, you can follow me on my Twitter for Charsie Luxxx with 3 X's, or on my Instagram for Charsie87. And thank you so much for joining me here and listening to me talk about my #1 favorite urban legend, the Licked Hand. Once again, I am the afterlife of the party. And no matter what time of the day it is, my little Luxxes, I hope you have a Luxxxy Charms kind of day. Bye. And she's out of her wits, and she's out into the bed. And Luke as they are passed down through generation to welcome, without sounding so weird. I am forgetting my Twitter and Instagram. This is my brain. This is what's been going on. Hello, my little Luxxes. This is cosplayer Charsie Luxxx, and my cat, Callie, at the door.